When Ethan's mistress came straight to our door, Mrs. Thompson and I were sitting together on the couch, scrolling through entertainment news. The woman was wearing a tight, white strapless dress that hugged every curve of her body, showing off her figure without shame. Her eyes, full of arrogance, landed on me as she said, "Claire, you should really learn to let go of what doesn't belong to you." Her youthful eyes sparkled, but behind that shine was clear disdain for me. I curved my lips slightly, raised a slender, fair hand, and slapped her hard across the face. Her head snapped to the side, and her flawless skin immediately flushed red and swollen. Ethan arrived late, frowning as he stepped between us, shielding me. The young woman clutched her face, her eyes red and tearful, looking pitiful. "Don't blame Claire," he said in a low voice. "You're the one who upset her." My palm stung. I gave my wrist a small shake, noticing that one of the tiny rhinestones on my manicure had fallen off, and I couldn't help but feel a bit of regret. Such a beautiful set of nails, now ruined. Mrs. Thompson lifted her head, her gaze cold. When she saw the red mark on Natalie's face, she looked at me with sympathy, then gently held my hand and rubbed it. "Since when does the Thompson family let any stray cat or dog waltz in like this?" she said sarcastically, her tone sharp and icy. Natalie bit her red lips, tears glimmering in her clear eyes. "Madam," she said softly, "Ethan and I are in love, true love." Mrs. Thompson's eyes turned razor sharp. She stood up and slapped Natalie across the face again. "And what are you?" she snapped coldly. "A mistress is still a mistress, using love as an excuse. How utterly shameless." Natalie's eyes filled with hurt as she looked at Ethan, silently pleading. His expression darkened, his tone icy. "Natalie, don't push your luck." Her face turned pale. I, on the other hand, smiled calmly at her. Ethan and I had been childhood sweethearts, neighbors who grew up together. Our marriage was an arrangement between two powerful families, uniting the interests of both. For someone like Natalie, dreaming of taking my place was nothing but a joke. "Claire, there's no need to be so angry," Ethan said evenly, his gaze searching my face. Natalie was just one of his many lovers, though she'd been around the longest. His affairs were no secret anymore. He didn't even bother hiding them. Sometimes he spent so much money on these women that their names trended online. By now, I was used to it. Seeing I didn't respond, Ethan continued, "I'll never cross your boundaries. Today was unexpected. I didn't think she'd actually have the nerve to come here and cause trouble." Natalie truly was a disobedient mistress, the second woman ever to show up in front of me to start a scene. I looked at Ethan's calm face and asked quietly, "And what exactly do you think my boundaries are?" If we were being honest, he had crossed them long ago. The Thompsons and the Harrisons were both from old, prestigious families. From the moment Ethan and I were born, our fates had been intertwined. Our marriage tied together not only our lives but also the power and interests of two dynasties, a political union common among the elite. But I was the one Ethan had chosen, the girl who grew up by his side, the one he had loved deeply enough to marry. Our bond had always been stronger than most. Mrs. Thompson used to joke with my mother, "Those two are so close, they're destined for a happy marriage." And for a while, she was right. For the first 3 years after our wedding, Ethan treated me with care and affection. He indulged me, spoiled me in every little way. Even my best friend, Amanda, used to envy how loving he was toward me. Ethan truly did love me once, but that love didn't last. It had an expiration date, exactly 3 years. The first time he cheated was with a young actress. He managed to hide it for months until someone caught him on camera visiting her on set, then following her into a hotel. The photos went viral online, climbing straight to the top of the trending searches. The news finally reached me. At that time, I was at the nail salon with Amanda, getting our manicures done. We were quietly listening to the nail technicians gossiping nearby. At first, we just smiled and didn't say a word. But when I suddenly heard Ethan's name, Amanda flinched so hard that the manicurist's brush slipped, leaving a long, ugly streak across her nail. The manicure was ruined. Furious and frustrated, Amanda cursed under her breath, "That bastard." Then, she slumped back in her seat while the technician began removing the damaged polish. I sat there like I'd lost my soul. For a brief moment, I tried to convince myself that the Ethan they mentioned was just someone else with the same name. but in the entertainment industry, there weren't many people capable of dominating headlines and commanding such respect. Aside from the heir of the Thompson family, my husband, who else could it be? With a trembling hand, I opened the trending page on my phone. In the photo, only a faint side profile of the man was visible, yet I recognized him instantly. The same man who had slept beside me every night for the past 3 years. He had his arm wrapped around a woman's waist in an intimate pose as they stepped out of a car and walked straight into a hotel. I finished my manicure like a sleepwalker, chatted absently with Amanda for a while, and went home. The moment the door closed behind me, I broke down completely, burying my face in my hands as tears streamed uncontrollably. The pain consumed me. My stomach turned violently, and I ran to the bathroom to throw up. Ethan had touched another woman, while still holding me in his arms every night. Natalie really was something. Not only did she dare to provoke me in person, but she still managed to keep Ethan by her side afterward. That kind of hold on him almost made me want to applaud. She even had the audacity to secretly send me pictures of the two of them together, some of them bold enough to make anyone blush. I didn't panic or cry. I calmly saved every single photo. Evidence that valuable? I'd have been a fool not to keep it. A few days later, Amanda and I attended a jewelry company's gala event, and the moment we walked in, we ran right into Ethan and Natalie. She was pressed close against his chest, her head lowered obediently, but the sight of them together stabbed into me like a knife. I smirked coldly. "Well, if it isn't Mr. Thompson himself," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Ethan frowned, clearly displeased. "Claire Harrison, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't talk in riddles." I ignored him and shot back. "You're cheating on your wife? And you still act like it's something to be proud of? You don't even bother pretending anymore, not even for appearances?" My eyes flicked toward Natalie, who was dressed up extravagantly. She looked startled and took a few frightened steps back. "Claire," Ethan snapped, immediately pulling her behind him as if I were some kind of wild animal. Natalie hid behind his back, no longer the weak, innocent girl she used to play. Her gaze on me was defiant, challenging. I rolled my eyes, turned on my heel, and walked away. "Go ahead and keep pretending," I muttered. Behind me, I heard her soft, sweet voice as she pouted and whined for comfort. Ethan leaned down and kissed her gently, as if to soothe her. Maybe it was my presence that had angered him, because later, during the auction segment of the event, he and his little mistress bid together on a diamond necklace worth over $1 million, and he even publicly declared his love for her. He was humiliating me on purpose, right there in front of everyone. Amanda was even angrier than I was. "Ethan Thompson, that bastard. When did he turn into someone like this? He used to be crazy about you," she snapped. It was true. Ethan had once loved me deeply. When we were young and just learning what love was, he had cherished me like a treasure. Whenever I was upset, he would find ways to surprise me, gently patting my head and saying, "Claire, you have to smile. I'll always be right here with you." When he called me by my nickname, Claire Bear, his voice was always warm and sincere. Back then, I never got tired of hearing it. Just that soft tone was enough to make me grin like an idiot, like sunlight breaking through the morning fog. But now, hearing Amanda repeat those same words, my stomach churned. My expression must have looked like I'd just swallowed garbage. "Please," I muttered bitterly. Who would want that kind of cheap love anymore? And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, Natalie came to find me again, this time holding an ultrasound report in her hand. Her belly was already showing, around 3 months along. She looked smug, almost radiant, like a proud peacock flaunting its feathers. "I'm pregnant," she announced triumphantly. "It's Ethan's child." Natalie was without a doubt the most foolish of all Ethan's mistresses. I looked at her with nothing but pity. She was still lost in her excitement over becoming a mother, completely blind to the complicated expression on Ethan's face. The Thompson family would never, under any circumstances, accept an illegitimate child. And Ethan himself had no intention of keeping a baby conceived with one of his mistresses. In a powerful family like theirs, a child born without the right lineage or backing was doomed from the start. They would never have a place in that world. But poor, simple Natalie couldn't think that far ahead. She naively believed she could use the baby to secure her position, to climb her way up. What she didn't realize was that the path she'd chosen had been a dead end from the beginning. Mrs. Thompson had long despised the swarm of women buzzing around her son. This time, she was furious enough to give him an ultimatum. If he didn't handle it properly, he shouldn't bother coming home again. I patted her back lightly, hoping to calm her down. She gently tapped the back of my hand in return, her eyes softening. I gave her a reassuring look, silently telling her not to worry. Then I turned to Natalie and asked coolly, "Miss Taylor, how exactly do you plan to prove that the baby is Ethan's?" "Claire," she snapped, her tone dripping with venom, "you're just jealous because I'm carrying Ethan's child. Once the baby's born, we'll all know who the father is." Her eyes were filled with hatred. She despised me for holding the official title of Mrs. Thompson. It was that resentment that made her so reckless, relying on Ethan's affection to act out so brazenly. But she was too naive to understand that to Ethan, benefits always outweighed love. Love was cheap, the least valuable thing in his world, something that mattered only when it was convenient. Ethan had taught me that lesson long ago. If Ethan could help Natalie gain footing in the entertainment industry, then I could just as easily make her fall from grace. When she first started openly flaunting her relationship with him, I secretly recorded every video and photo of them entering hotels together. So when she finally dared to challenge me to my face, I was more than ready to strike back. On the day Natalie wrapped filming for her latest movie, I sent her a special gift. A scandalous video of her and Ethan entering a hotel together, leaked by a famous blogger on social media. The post also included several close-up photos of them dating over 2 consecutive days. By the time anyone tried to deny it, it was far too late. Everyone knew Ethan was married. Overnight, Natalie was branded as the other woman. In the past, she'd always been shielded by Ethan. Every compromising picture or video had been quietly suppressed. He'd even helped her build a pure and innocent public image, the perfect sweetheart persona. So when that image shattered, it crumbled fast, faster than anyone expected. Under pressure from me, no one dared to step in and help her. Behind me stood the Harrison family, and I was still Mrs. Thompson. No one in their right mind would risk offending me, not for a washed-up actress like her. The potential loss wasn't worth it. Natalie was furious when she showed up at my door again. She'd lost her glow, her arrogance gone. Now she carried a massive breach of contract fine and a face pale with rage. "Claire Harrison, don't push things too far," she shouted. I studied the diamond ring on my hand, a 30-carat piece, custom-made for me by Mrs. Thompson. I loved it so much I almost never took it off. Watching Natalie tremble with anger, I said calmly, "You brought this on yourself. You're only paying the price you deserve. Ethan won't forgive you for this," she hissed. At that, I couldn't help but laugh, a real laugh that shook my shoulders. "Who told you I needed his permission?" The truth was, I'd just been bluffing. Ethan had been overseas on business for days, far too busy to even know what I'd done. Natalie's face twisted in disbelief. "No way, I don't believe you." I arched a brow. "Believe whatever you want, or better yet, call him and find out." She did. She called 10 times in a row, but not once did he answer. By the time she lowered her phone, her face had gone completely ashen. Honestly, I almost felt sorry for her, but not enough to tell her the truth. I had changed Ethan's phone number days ago. The one Natalie kept calling no longer worked. That phone now sat untouched and gathering dust at home. She stared at me for a long time before suddenly lowering her head, her tone softening. "Claire, I think there's been a misunderstanding between us. We should talk calmly." Her sudden submission only made me more cautious. I kept my voice cold. "There's nothing for us to talk about." She stepped in front of me, blocking my path, and gripped my wrist hard. I glanced at her slightly rounded belly, but didn't react. My brows furrowed. "Let go of me, Natalie." Her pretense of gentleness vanished instantly. Her eyes burned with fury. "Claire Harrison, what makes you so high and mighty all the time? Without the Harrisons or the Thompsons, you'd be nothing." "So what if that's true?" I asked flatly. The question left her speechless, her hand tightening painfully around my wrist. "I hate you," she spat. "If I can't live in peace, then you won't either." The next second, a piercing scream tore through the air. Natalie collapsed to the floor, clutching her stomach. On the shiny marble tiles, a crimson pool began to spread, bright and shocking. "Claire," she cried weakly, her voice trembling, "I don't understand why you've always hated me so much, that you'd go this far to hurt my baby." Her lips had gone pale, her face as white as porcelain, tears streaming down like pearls. She looked fragile, pitiful, and yet her eyes were defiant, burning with accusation. Those words were enough to throw me straight into the fire of public outrage. A crowd quickly gathered around us, whispering among themselves, "She looks so elegant, but she's vicious underneath. Just goes to show you never really know someone. Let's stay away from her. She's dangerous." Dozens of voices buzzed around me, their judgment heavy and cruel. An ambulance arrived soon after and rushed Natalie to the hospital. Even as the paramedics lifted her onto the stretcher, she clung to my hand and sobbed. "You hurt my baby. You can't just walk away." She was taken into the emergency room. Not long after, Ethan flew back from overseas in a hurry. The moment he arrived, his eyes were filled with accusation. "Claire," he said, his voice low and tight, "the baby was innocent. Did you really have to be so heartless?" The hospital felt freezing. The chill seeped from the walls into my body, into my heart. I looked at him expressionlessly. "Believe whatever you want, Ethan, but it wasn't me." He seemed ready to argue, but before he could speak, the door to the emergency room opened, and a doctor stepped out, asking for the patient's family. Ethan rushed forward immediately, following the doctor inside. I knew I should have left, but my legs felt like they'd been filled with lead. I couldn't move. I couldn't even make out what the doctor said. When I finally took a step toward the door, Ethan turned around and said coldly, "Natalie needs rest. Don't come here again." I nodded lightly, my tone flat. "Fine, let's file for divorce in a few days." Later, a video surfaced online, one showing me allegedly pushing Natalie, causing her miscarriage. It spread like wildfire. Overnight, I became the nation's villain. She used her family's power to bully others. Disgusting. What goes around comes around. Claire Harrison will get what she deserves. Even if that mistress was wrong, losing her baby was too cruel. She can't even keep her husband, and now she's taking it out on another woman? Pathetic. I scrolled through the comments calmly, resting my chin on my hand, my eyes thoughtful. My parents called soon after, asking if I wanted them to pull strings to suppress the story. I shook my head. "Don't worry about me," I said softly. "I'll handle it myself." Amanda took a few days off work to stay with me at the estate. After watching me go about my days without breaking down, she pinched my cheek in disbelief. "How can you be so calm about all this?" I smiled faintly. "Haven't you ever heard the saying, greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant? The louder this gets, the harder it'll backfire on her later." Amanda let out a low whistle and gave me a thumbs up. "You really are something, Claire." Public opinion began to show sympathy for Natalie, and her fame shot up overnight. She quickly returned to her former standing, landing no small number of new endorsement deals and acting roles. Seeing that I'd stayed quiet for half a month, she came gloating. "Have you felt what it's like to be dragged through the mud online yet?" Natalie lifted her chin arrogantly, the corner of her mouth curling with contempt. "Even if it wasn't me who pushed you, so what? Now the internet is full of proof that I did it. No amount of talking can wash that away." I stayed silent, which only made her bolder. Her voice grew smug. "You can't beat me." Suddenly my eyes stung, and I let a few tears fall, performing my role on cue. My voice trembled as I asked, "Why would you do this to me?" "Because you stole Ethan's love. You get everything without lifting a finger. You deserve to suffer." I checked my phone and quietly reviewed a voice recording, then let a satisfied curl touch my lips as I watched her writhe. Seeing me look miserable made Natalie even more excited. She raised her hand to slap me, but I moved fast and grabbed her wrist. I flipped the script instantly, my gaze ice cold as I looked down at her. "Was I too respectful of you?" I snapped, then delivered a crisp, disdainful slap. "If you've got the guts, kill me. If not, wait to be defeated by me." I already had the evidence I wanted, so I turned and walked away without hesitation. Behind me, Natalie screamed like she was going insane. "Claire Harrison, I'll make your life a living hell." She waved her phone and the recording in the air, as if that were a final, fatal blow. I watched the contorted fury on her face and replied coolly, You set that trap yourself. At that moment, Amanda, who was sitting across from me and enjoying my petty satisfaction, reminded me to be careful. She'd even bought a camera from some paparazzi to film the whole thing. The entire conversation between Natalie and me had been recorded. Still, 3 days passed, and I hadn't acted. Amanda started getting impatient. "You're not going soft on her, are you?" she asked. I told her to calm down. Letting Natalie stew another few days would do her more harm. Amanda nodded approvingly at my maneuver. I smiled and agreed with her, thinking that the more this blew up, the worse it would bounce back on Natalie. She changed phone numbers every day to call and hurl abuse at me. I just deleted and blocked each one. Finally, unable to tolerate my cold treatment, she arranged to meet me in person. I went straight to the point. "Do you know Mia Lane?" I asked. The name made Natalie startle and look at me with wide eyes. I smiled without warmth. "She's still serving time. Everything was set up by me." In the look of horror on Natalie's face, I spoke slowly, enunciating every syllable. I had engineered it all. I wasn't some gentle, meek girl. Kids raised in powerful families weren't naturally kind and friendly. I held grudges, and if anyone crossed me, I repaid them many times over. So while I hadn't acted yet, she should enjoy herself while she could. I offered the advice kindly, but she flew into a rage and called me crazy. Slightly amused, I secretly moved my pieces. I arranged for others to snatch up all her endorsement deals and acting jobs. Suddenly, Natalie was so busy she barely had time to breathe. After I suggested a divorce, Ethan tried to see me several times, but I was too occupied with dealing with Natalie to care. Now he stood in a neatly tailored suit before me. I glanced at him once and looked away. "Claire," he said, "I'll take care of this." Even he didn't seem to realize how cheap that line had become. I looked up at him, my smile still faint and composed. "Ethan, this is the third time." At those words, his expression changed at once. The man who had always been steady and collected now looked plainly flustered. I continued, my tone cold. "Your promises are worthless," I said evenly. "If you really want to make it up to me, why don't you start by giving me a bigger share of the assets?" Before Natalie, there had been another woman, a mistress, just as naive but burning with wild passion. She was young, radiant like sunlight, with bright, sparkling eyes and a smile that could make anyone look twice. There was something in her gaze, a kind of alluring confidence that drew people in. Ethan had always had a weakness for women like that. The girl looked straight at me without the slightest trace of fear, her lips curling with pride. "Claire," she said boldly, "the one who isn't loved is the real mistress." How fitting, the same kind of arrogance that Ethan himself carried. That was Mia Lane, the second mistress he kept before Natalie, and the one who'd lasted the longest by his side. She'd been spoiled so completely that she no longer knew her place. She even dared to provoke me openly. Fresh out of college, she was still a student when Ethan took an interest in her. She had never seen the cruelty of the real world. To put it kindly, she was innocent. To be blunt, she was foolish, so foolish it almost made me pity her. She was young, pretty, and knew how to act sweet. Whenever she angered Ethan, she'd throw herself into his arms, pouting and apologizing until he softened. And Ethan, the great Ethan Thompson, could never resist a woman who cried prettily. Mia tilted her chin proudly and deliberately pulled down her collar to reveal a few glaring red marks across her neck. Pretending to fix it, she murmured coyly, "Oops, I guess my neckline's a bit low." I'd grown used to women like her, the newly minted mistresses who thought they were untouchable. Dealing with them had become second nature to me. I raised an eyebrow and replied calmly, "Miss Lane, if you can't manage to dress properly, I'd be happy to help you rip it off completely." Her face flushed red with fury. She trembled, pointing a finger at me, speechless for a long moment before she finally choked out, "You." I was already bored. I stood, ready to leave, but she grabbed my wrist. "Don't go, I'm not done talking." Ethan had spoiled her to the point that she thought she could bargain with me. "Claire," she said sharply, "if you can't keep Ethan's heart, don't try to monopolize him." She stared straight into my eyes, refusing to blink. I frowned, my patience gone, and slapped her hard across the face. The sound cracked through the air. Her pretty face froze in shock for a moment, then twisted with rage. She shoved me forcefully. I stumbled backward, crashing into the edge of the table. A sudden, hot gush ran down my legs and a sharp pain tore through me. The last thing I saw before blacking out was Ethan standing at the doorway, his face a mixture of anger and panic. I had been 2 months pregnant. No one had known about the baby, and just like that, it left me as quietly as it had come. I should have been devastated, but as I touched my now flat stomach, all I felt was relief, a strange, liberating calm. Mia's expression, however, was far less composed when she received the lawsuit I filed against her for intentional injury. She cried and begged for forgiveness, swearing it had been an accident. But someone had to pay for what happened to my child. I'd let her push me on purpose. That child carried Ethan's blood, and it disgusted me. I hadn't had the courage or the reason to end the pregnancy myself, but Mia made the perfect scapegoat. She was foolish, reckless, and always hovering around me. I'd grown sick of her long before that day. She was, in every sense, the ideal pawn to turn my misfortune into something bigger. So I decided to hold a press conference. Natalie showed up in a pure white dress, playing the part of the fragile, innocent victim. Her pitiful act quickly earned her waves of sympathy from the audience. Then I took out my phone and played the audio recording of our private conversation. The room fell into shocked silence, followed by a storm of murmurs. "Miss Taylor," a reporter called out, thrusting a microphone toward her, "is it true that you intentionally framed Mrs. Harrison?" "Miss Taylor, please explain yourself to the public." Flashes burst from every direction, the blinding strobe of cameras filling the room as Natalie froze under the weight of her own lies. Natalie sobbed as she spoke, her face the picture of guilt. "Claire, social media is so rampant now, who knows whether that recording was doctored?" The reporters, fickle as reeds in the wind, immediately shoved microphones back into my face. "Claire Harrison, what is the truth? Did you really use your power to bully her?" "Miss Taylor, is what she said true or not?" they demanded. "No," I said. Fortunately, I had Plan B ready. Just as Amanda was about to post the video online, Mrs. Thompson arrived. She strode in with her bodyguards, snatched the microphone, and spoke sternly, "I have evidence." She played the video from that day, proving that Natalie had deliberately framed me at the press conference. Her gaze swept the room like a blade and settled on the most aggressive reporters in the front row. "For those who spread false rumors about my daughter-in-law, I will have my lawyers file suits. If you lie, you must take responsibility. Claire Harrison is the daughter-in-law I personally chose. Her character and appearance both deserve to stand beside my son. As for Miss Taylor, who has repeatedly provoked her, Claire is kind and doesn't like to argue, but I am a mother-in-law. I cannot stand aside. If you slander Claire and accuse her of intentionally hurting others, I will pursue this case to the end. Prepare to receive a summons." Natalie's face registered utter disbelief. All her scheming had been exposed, every guilt laid bare under the media lights. Furious and unwilling to accept it, she lunged toward me to strike, but Mrs. Thompson instantly pulled me behind her and waved. A team of bodyguards surged forward and restored order. Tears pricked my eyes as I gripped her hand, not knowing what to say. "Claire," she said, "I will always be behind you." My eyes turned red as I asked, "But didn't all the cameras around there fail? Where did you find the video, Mom?" "Money finds a way," she answered. "I had people searching for a long time until they found a hidden camera tucked in the corner. It recorded everything clearly. I wanted to throw myself at her and kiss her. 'I love you, Mom,' I said, my voice full of gratitude." By the time Ethan returned from his business trip abroad, everything had turned upside down. Natalie was branded the other woman and was publicly vilified. Brands and directors canceled contracts one after another, and the compensation payments piled up like a mountain. Where I had once been the target of online abuse, now it was Natalie's turn. The accusations aimed at her made her life miserable. The evidence against her for defamation was clear. Mrs. Thompson hired the best legal team. She said that even after 4 years, Natalie shouldn't dream of getting out of detention. I hadn't expected Ethan to hurry to visit his mistress. Instead, he called me first. "Are you done being angry?" he asked. I heard the question and felt nothing but bad luck. There was no tenderness in it. I answered flatly, "When will you sign the divorce papers?" He slammed the phone down without another word. I told Amanda, "That man is filthy through and through." She nodded emphatically, her expression all kinds of satisfied. When Mrs. Thompson learned I wanted a divorce, though it hurt her, she supported me wholeheartedly. Claire, she said, the Thompson family owes you, whatever you choose. I'm on your side. Mrs. Thompson and my mother were close friends, so she treated me like her own daughter. I hugged her, tears in my eyes, and thanked her for always being by my side. Lately, Ethan hadn't been visiting his mistresses anymore. He'd just hover around wherever I was. Amanda joked, his brain must have a hole in it. What good is his regret now? I only smiled without answering. Ethan truly had a problem. Every so often, he'd come up to me with a conciliatory smile until I coldly hurled the divorce agreement at his face. The smile froze on him like plaster as he took a deep breath and said, Claire, do you really feel nothing at all? Ethan asked quietly. I looked at him, my tone calm but cold. Ethan, don't act like I'm the heartless one here. Everything that happened was your choice. Bit by bit, I stripped away the mask he always wore, watching as unease flickered across his face. You're the one who didn't care about the past. You're the one who kept a mistress. You're the one who crossed every line I drew. His jaw tightened, and that handsome face of his twisted with agitation, losing the composure he'd always prided himself on. Claire, it's not what you think, he said hastily, almost pleading. But when he met my unwavering gaze, he froze. His hands gripped my shoulders, his face inches from mine, as if searching for even a trace of hesitation, a reason to hope. I exhaled slowly, my voice as steady and clear as water. Don't bother trying to charm me anymore. Ethan stared at me, desperate, like a man clinging to something slipping through his fingers. His voice trembled. How did it end up like this? Why did we come to this point? I fought to stay composed, but anger still crept into my voice. Ethan, you think I'm soft because I was raised to be the perfect wife, gentle, polite, forgiving. You thought that meant I would tolerate your infidelity forever. But did you ever stop to think that my heart hurts too? You can't be that greedy, wanting everything at once. You can't have your lover and still expect me to forgive you. He looked panicked as he reached up to wipe the tears from my face, his voice fragile as if I might shatter. I didn't know. I didn't realize what I was doing was hurting you. I thought you didn't care, that you were stronger than that. Looking at him now, reduced, desperate, trembling like a dog cast out, I felt an odd peace settle over me. It's over, Ethan, I said quietly. Let's end this with a little dignity. Go your way, and I'll go mine. The Thompsons gave me a very generous settlement, enough for me to live comfortably for several lifetimes. That morning, I left the family estate and began my new life. Ethan flooded my phone with messages afterward. I grew so irritated that I changed my number altogether. Amanda called from time to time, laughing that Ethan now looked like a lost dog, always wandering around trying to find me. She said it was an insult to her own golden retriever, Max. At least Max was sweet and loyal. Ethan Thompson, she fumed. What a filthy man. He really thinks he's in one of those romance novels, mess up, turn around, and magically win his wife back as the cold CEO hero? I laughed so hard I nearly cried. A few days later, my new neighbor, Lucas Chu, the half-Chinese, half-English boy next door, caught me laughing and tilted his head with curiosity. What's so funny, Claire? He asked with that charming grin. Just laughing at a clown, I said lightly. Lucas was my younger neighbor. He had soft blonde curls and deep blue eyes that seemed to see right through me. His handsome face made me pause for a moment longer than I should have. So, he teased, pouting playfully, when are you finally going to make things official between us? Huh? When I first moved in, my sleep had been restless, full of nightmares. Somehow, that boy found out. Every night, he would stand outside my window and tell stories, his soft, melodic voice lulling me back to sleep. Gradually, the insomnia faded, and so did the silence between us. Then he started showing up more often, even knocking at my door, demanding that I give him a title. But one evening, Ethan somehow found out where I lived. After work, he showed up at my door, waiting for me like some stalker. Lucas thought I was being harassed by a creep, and immediately launched himself at Ethan. They got into a fist fight before I could even react. When Lucas finally learned who Ethan was, and what he'd done, he became even less restrained. The next time they met, he punched him again without hesitation. It took all my effort to break them apart every time. two handsome men with bruised faces glaring at each other like wild animals. Lucas would turn to me afterward, pouting like a scolded puppy. "Claire, just look at that guy." I pulled him close, wrapping an arm around him protectively, then looked coldly at Ethan. "Don't come looking for me again." In Ethan's eyes, there was a glint of something I didn't want to recognize and had no desire to understand. I brought Lucas back home to tend to his bruises. "Claire, it hurts," he whimpered, his tone so soft and pitiful that it almost made me laugh. Lucas knew exactly how to act spoiled, to the point that I couldn't even stay stern with him. As I carefully dabbed ointment on his cheek, he flinched slightly and murmured, "Then be gentle, okay? You're so good to me, Claire." My face flushed red without warning. Once, I had loved the wrong man and trusted the wrong heart, but deep down, I still believed in love. Like Amanda once said, love itself is sacred. It's only made dirty by those who trample it. Before I could respond, Lucas leaned his head down and whispered almost to himself, "We still have a long future ahead of us. I have plenty of time to wait." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Then go ahead and chase that long, wide future," I told him. "As for me, I'm just going to enjoy today." Ethan's epilogue. Claire and I grew up together. I truly loved her, but a man with power and money becomes greedy, always craving freedom, always chasing something new. I started by keeping my first mistress. Watching her pout and pretend innocence amused me. I thought of Claire at home and decided to hide it from her. When I noticed she didn't react much, irritation began to fester in me. I deliberately made things public, wanting to see how far she'd go. Claire was so gentle, so composed, I thought she'd forgive me. Until the day she confronted me. "What exactly have the last few years between us been, Ethan?" she asked. I had another woman in my arms at that moment. She blinked her wide, innocent eyes at me, and I felt strangely delighted. Claire had never looked at me like that. "Claire, stop making a scene," I told her impatiently. Her gaze turned sharp and unwavering, which only angered me more. To provoke her, I bought the woman beside me a diamond set worth over $1 million, just to prove I could. But Claire seemed unfazed. She lived her days calmly, gracefully. My mother adored her even more than she loved me, showering her with affection, gifts, and attention. Later, I replaced that mistress with another, a naive, sweet girl I spoiled endlessly. She grew bold enough to confront Claire face to face. I wanted to see if Claire would finally lose her composure, if she'd get angry for once. But I never expected that she was pregnant. During their argument, Mia Lane shoved her, and Claire lost the baby. I stood outside the hospital room, smoking one cigarette after another. Mia sobbed uncontrollably, insisting it wasn't intentional. I frowned, pushing her away coldly. "That was my child," I said flatly. "My child with Claire, a baby I never even got to meet." My mother was furious. She used her connections to send Mia to prison. Mia begged me to save her, but all I felt was annoyance. When I went in to visit Claire, she had grown thinner, her face pale as porcelain. She lay there, silent, her eyes empty, as if there was nothing left that could hold her here. My mother refused to let me near her. For a long time, I barely saw her. When I finally did, she looked healthier, her skin brighter, her cheeks with a faint glow again. I felt a small measure of relief, but soon enough I went back to the same old life, the parties, the arms of other women. My friend Ryan Chen laughed one night and said, "You're living too recklessly. Aren't you afraid Claire's going to throw you out one day?" I chuckled, confident, the arrogance in my voice unmistakable. "No, she won't. Claire and I will never reach that point. Yes, I cheated, but I never gave any of them my heart. I always believed I'd come back to her, that we'd return to the good old days, the way we once were. I never imagined Ryan's joke would one day come true. The newest woman, Natalie, was troublesome. Twice she caused scenes in front of Claire. I'd warned her not to overstep. Told my assistant to make sure she took her birth control. Yet somehow, she got pregnant. Then one day, I got a call. Natalie had miscarried. The person who supposedly pushed her was Claire. Furious, I confronted her, and without thinking, the only words that came out of my mouth were, "Natalie needs rest. Don't come to the hospital anymore." She looked at me calmly and said, "Let's file for divorce in a few days." I couldn't believe it. I couldn't understand how she could make that decision so easily. My face darkened as I tried to reason with her. But her determination left no room for argument. I thought that if I just tried harder, if I put in the effort, we could somehow go back to the way things used to be. I cut off all my mistresses. Every day, I found some excuse to show up in front of her. She spoke to me more than before, but every word carried a quiet finality. She said that love was the cheapest thing in the world, and that I was the one who taught her that lesson. It took me a long time to truly understand what she meant. I even went to my mother, begging her to talk to Claire for me. My mother only sighed and shook her head gently. "Claire is a good girl," she said. "Don't make her suffer anymore." When she threw the divorce agreement in my face, I finally realized she hadn't stopped caring. She was just too tired, too hurt, and too numb to feel anything anymore. Watching her grow thinner each day, I understood at last that the wounds I'd inflicted on her were far too deep to ever be healed. I was disgusting. I'd thought that as long as I didn't truly fall for anyone else, as long as I could always return to her after my games, everything would be fine. That thought alone was filthy, cowardly. Amanda once mocked me, saying, "You think you're the CEO in some cheesy romance novel? That whole chasing your wife after screwing up storyline doesn't suit you." I didn't reply, and Claire didn't either. No one was on my side anymore, not the Harrisons, not even my mother. I had no idea how Claire was living, but I still texted her, begged for forgiveness, sent long apologies. She blocked every number, every platform. She even changed her phone completely. Later, my friend Ryan Chen told me she'd moved. I used every connection I had to find where she lived, and every night after work, I drove there just to wait outside her building. But it didn't take long before I realized there was another man in her life now. He made her laugh, made her smile in a way I hadn't seen in years. Every time we crossed paths, he was the first to throw a punch, yet somehow, whenever Claire appeared, it always looked like I was the one at fault. She always sided with him. "Don't come looking for me anymore," she told me coldly. There was no love left in her eyes, none at all. That's when it hit me. She was really leaving me behind. For the first time, I panicked. I'd never once imagined a world where Claire would no longer be by my side. 5 years later, I saw her again. The man from before was still with her, and in his arms was a little girl, soft, bright, and beautiful. Claire gave me a polite nod, then bent down, brushing a strand of hair from the child's forehead. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "say hello to the nice man." She was still as kind and graceful as ever. The little girl looked up at me with wide eyes and said in a sweet voice, "Hello, mister." In that moment, a thought struck me, cruel and untimely. If I had cherished Claire back then, our child would be older than this little girl by now. She would have called us Mom and Dad. We could have been happy, truly happy, but I'd destroyed all of that with my own hands. The man beside her gazed at her with such tenderness, his lips curling into a satisfied smile. Once, Claire had stood beside me just like that, her gentle eyes meant only for me. I stood there, unable to look away, jealousy and regret clawing at my chest until it hurt to breathe. But I no longer had the right to stand beside her. "I'm sorry, Claire," I whispered, though she was already gone. "I'm sorry. I was too late. I hope you'll be happy." And that was the end.